Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, I am like a kid in a candy store, guys. I have 151 episodes. I've been doing this over a year and a half, and one of the first people that I wanted on the podcast, I have on the show today live, and it is my absolute honor. My dad thinks I'm cool because I get to hang with this guy today. I believe, like he just said very simply, he's super humble. He said that he's just the founder and executive chef of the Mina Group. For me, I say that he's the greatest chef out there, has the greatest product, and most of the time people have an art form that they've mastered, but they can't, maybe they can execute, but they can't deliver and build people. And this man is the first person that I've been able to see as that triple threat that has has mastered his craft, has been able to execute on the highest level, and on top of that, that he builds people at a higher level and allows people to shine as opposed to putting all the light on himself. So I want to welcome to the show Mr. Chef Michael Mina.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is a pleasure. My dad, I tell you, Chef, my dad, I just talked to him just a second ago. He prayed for me. He was like, look, I want to pray for you. I want to pray over this interview, the whole nine. And he told me, he said, that is not food that regular people eat. He said this was his exact words. He said, that is food that only debutantes eat. He said he had international smoke last year. You set us up and sent it over for Thanksgiving. And my dad is the most humble guy ever, but looked at me and was like, can we have this again tomorrow? And we ordered it again the next day. Can you tell us how you're able to? I mean, you're I believe one of the top, if not not only one of the top, but the top chef in the world. But you keep shining light on everyone else. Your collaborations are through the roof. How are you able to keep your ego in check and make it about everybody else and continue to grow the way that you do?
Oh, well, thank you, Kelly. I mean, that's kind, really kind of you to say. But honestly, I would say that I was pretty blessed that I got to do my first restaurant. And I think that everyone's road and everyone's career is different. A lot of people in our industry, I would say a lot of chefs, that came up about the time that I came up, and maybe even a little bit earlier. A lot of times it started as a job. Like a lot of us started as dishwashers, really, and got into we needed a job, so we got into restaurants are that one industry that's always hiring, especially right now. If anyone needs a job, we're all hiring. Every one of us is hiring. But it starts as a job. It started as a job, but immediately, I quickly got a passion for it and started cooking. Really, really got fortunate enough to be able to start cooking right away at the little tiny restaurant I was working at, and so then when I was able to, go to culinary school, do the thing, go work in different restaurants, then all of a sudden you get your first, break, and you don't know if you're going to be ready for your first break. You just don't know. You don't know, there's steps that you take in life, and sometimes certain things happen. You get put in a position that you get a break that you're not sure if it's a break or you're not sure if it's something that you might drown at, right? And mine happened in '91 when I opened Aqua in San Francisco, and that was the first restaurant. But I was really young. I mean, I was, it just happened that that the restaurant got an opportunity to do the restaurant, but the earthquake happened in '89, and so it took some time to build the restaurant. So as I think as you the more time you have, a lot of times, especially when it comes to building a restaurant or building anything, like say you're building a house, right? And all of a sudden, you're building a house and you start and you say, I'm going to be done in 6 months, but it takes 2 years. You're going to spend twice as much and you're going to build, twice the house that you thought you were going to build, because you can't stop. Your mind doesn't stop. You get too creative, you get too many ideas, and you keep going. And so with the earthquake, that's kind of what happened. And then Aqua, which kind of, it was in San Francisco on California Street, still is my still I still have the space today. It's a different restaurant. Um, it Because of the 2 years it took, I think we were able to conceptualize something that opened with such a bang, and people had never seen anything like it in San Francisco. And it was just a different vibe. It was a 4-star restaurant. There's only 3 4-star restaurants in San Francisco, but the other two, I would call them great restaurants, but I used to call them they're, whisper joints, because they were the type of place you went in and it was like 40 seats and you felt like you had to whisper, and they did 100 dinners a night, and we were cooking for like 500 people a day, buzzing bar. And it was a scene. It was that CNB scene type of place, but still had a very high level of, it still was at that really high level you were shooting for. I always said we wanted, to have, food that rivaled what was going on in New York, and service, at that level. But we wanted to have a really fun, we wanted to have an environment where people were having a hell of a party and having a great time. And that was the whole goal. And so, and so having that kind of happen at a young age really helped me, because what I learned quickly was, to do that, you had to have an amazing team, and you had to have great systems. And the systems and the team are what really were going to, no one person alone was going to feed 500 people at that level every day. And so when you had to have the systems, you had to have the team. And um, what I think really sparked the next kind of wave of growth for me was, to be quite honest, in that in that time period, it was kind of voodoo for a chef to have more than one restaurant. And so the second restaurant I got the opportunity to do was Bellagio. I was asked to do a second taco in Las Vegas at Bellagio. And I'll never forget, some of the media, we won't name who they were, but some of the media wrote, um, it's a sellout. A chef can't do 2 restaurants. And it really kind of pissed me off, to be honest with you, because I'm sitting there reading about these quote unquote restaurateurs that have multiple restaurants, and half the time they're like businessmen or attorneys that have, you know, taken advantage of a chef, and it's really the chef doing it, but they're restaurateurs, and it's okay that they have a bunch of restaurants. Nobody writes anything, but as soon as the chef does it, people start writing, oh, well, chef can't do more than one restaurant. And I said, you're absolutely right. A chef can't do more than one restaurant, and chef can't realistically do one restaurant, right? A chef is doing it with a great group of people around them, from the person answering the phone to the person parking the car to every other person, that's involved in that restaurant. And so that's where it kind of started, the idea of that it really is a group of people, and it's a team, and it's how you're going to build it. And so then, as the goal quickly became that we started to build this really great group that was all really wanted to stay together. We did not want to separate. And I know my partner in the company and president, Patrick Humel, and just this amazing group of people with all this talent. And I and I started saying, we also want to continue to learn. Like, we want to continue to learn and learn new cuisines. And one of the most beautiful thing about food is food connects people. Every country, has, so much of the history of the country comes from food, right? And so as we continue to want to learn more and more and more, um, the goals started to become really clear. It's, how do you bring great people together? How do you bring authenticity to what you're doing? And to do that, I felt like it was really important to partner with chefs, not to build, oh, the Michael Mina Japanese restaurant, and then the Michael Mina Caribbean restaurant, and then there's partnerships that just make complete sense, because if it's like Pabu, our Japanese restaurant, and you partner with a Ken Tamanaga, he's going to bring you all the authenticity. We're going to be able to do that level of Japanese food that we want to do. But there's no way that, you know, for him, that type of a restaurant was unachievable. But when you partnered with Mina Group, then it was achievable because you could build something that was big and dynamic and the same, a lot of the same foundation that started with Aqua. We could start to use that same philosophies and foundation to build other restaurants and to build other cuisines, and that's really how we built it all.
So, Chef, one of the things, and I've got a chance to experience it on a personal level. Like I said, my dad, you know, when my dad experienced International Smoke, I mean, the dude was, I thought he was going to get down and pray to this food, like when we were done. It was on a completely other level. The service was on another level. Most of the time, as places expand, right? They get to this place where, you know, you've read Jim Collins' Good to Great, but then Jim Collins followed it up with a book called How the Mighty Fall. And one of the main aspects of it was hubris. Basically, you know, the thought in your head that I've succeeded 100 times, therefore I'm going to do something and it's going to succeed just because of that. How have you kept yourself from that and continued to get better? Because your service, and I've got to watch it over the years. I've been, you know, when you did your first one at the Bellagio, actually my sister-in-law used to work for you there as a hostess. And I've seen the quality and the level of service and the level of people in your organization continue to rise. How have you been able to do that?
Well, so you know, I'd love to say that there's just this magic, you know, one-liner magic formula to it, but there really isn't. I mean, first and foremost, you know, one, you got to be obsessed. You've got to be completely obsessed with it and understand that a restaurant every single day, no matter what, that restaurant you're talking about today will be better or worse than it was yesterday. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it's been around. Doesn't matter what it is. You're talking about human nature. You're talking about human beings and people. So each day the restaurant's going to be better or worse than it was the day before. So what do you have to do to make it better every single day? Well, number one, you have to you have to know that exact thing, right? The places that I see that I think, you know, sometimes people want to call them institutions or whatever else it is. I see more of them being mediocre than I see them absolutely shining, where a place says, okay, well, this is the way we've been doing it for 40 years, so we're going to keep doing it that way. Well, yeah, you're an institution then, and that's not really what we ever set out to be. What we set out to be with every single restaurant is say, what are the tools you got to put in place on a daily basis to evaluate your restaurant, like to look at it every day of how we're going to get better. And the biggest thing you have to do is it's no different than, you know, it's no different than sports. It's no different than so many other things. Is, you know, it's all about preparation. It's all of it is about preparation. And each day, you know, I can walk into any restaurant and I can tell you when they skipped their daily meeting. You know, they didn't have their half hour. They sat down and really went through every single detail. I mean, we have a system that we use. You go through the day before, you go through the day of, and you go through the next day. And the reason you're going through the day before is because you're learning from what happened the day before. You've got a very detailed log that tells you this is exactly what happened the day before. This is how much revenue we did. This is, you know, these are the plates that got sent back. This is everything that we could have done better yesterday. Then today, this is everything we're going to learn from yesterday. And we're going to take all of those learnings, and then we're going to have a strategy and a plan because Joe called out sick today. So how are we going to cover Joe's station and blah, 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 right? And so now we're really looking at today. And then you've got to look at the next day because you got to be one day ahead because now, you know, now tomorrow, Kelly's coming in for dinner, and we know Kelly loves quail, and we don't have quail on the menu, but we want to blow Kelly's mind. So today, we got to know today, so we order quail for tomorrow so we can do that quail dish for him for tomorrow. So that's how you exist on a day-to-day basis. And then what I always like to do is we do, you know, the seasonal menu changes where product changes seasonally. That's the time, those 4 times a year where you have the big seasonal changes. Those are the times where I think it's a good time to sit back as a group and take that full, you know, 2 or 3 hours to sit back and evaluate you know, what's going on? What can we do to continue to move the restaurant forward? Not just make a seasonal menu change. And then a lot of it is really, how you inspire and how you communicate with all of the people that are in the restaurant as far as, what I call, you know, look, in this day and age right now, staffing is the number one issue in restaurants without a doubt. But there's always going to be a core of staff, even if you're short staffed. There's always a core of staff that's there because this is their career. This isn't they're not doing this just to get a paycheck. They're doing this because they want to do this for the rest of their life, and they're striving to be the very best at it. And those are the people that you want to lean on in your restaurant to make everybody, really, to help to inspire everybody, because you can't walk around and inspire every single person, but that core of people can, because those are the people that are looking at everyone's Instagram. Those are the people that are, looking at, oh, what did John George post on his Instagram, and what are the up and coming chefs doing, and it's looking at the people that have, you know, I always look at kind of I look at it in a few different ways. I look at it as, who is that group of, chefs or restaurateurs that have withstood the test of time, because there's so many come and go in our business, and they're there for a while, I mean, they're there for more than a minute. You can be there for 5 years. That doesn't mean anything. It's how many decades have you been relevant? Were you relevant in the 90s, and then in the 2000s, then 2010? Take it decade by decade. The ones that have showed relevance decade after decade usually are the ones that never create, never wanted to create the institutional restaurant. They wanted to always take their restaurant and move it forward, or their group of restaurants and move it forward. And then it's looking at what the people are doing that are up and coming. And then obviously it's the global aspect, because what's so cool about the United States is so much of it is global, and you're looking at people, it's the melting pot, right? And so the different cuisines, the different ethnicities, and the different ingredients you can pull from, and I think it's become really fun, because I think there was a little period of time there where, fusion, people had screwed up fusion so bad, they kind of had directed it at one cuisine. It was like Asian fusion was it, and people had kind of screwed it up, a lot of people, so bad that people didn't realize that, like, there is nothing wrong with pulling different ingredients from different countries and using them on the same dish, as long as you understand that ingredient and why you're using it and how you're using it. There's always going to be classic dishes you don't screw with, but some of the new innovation. And so it's a long answer for a combination of all of those things are what come together, and I think start to create that ability to have a restaurant that can improve constantly, that can get better, but also, can really, still wow the guests. And then, frankly, you're going to have a handful of dishes that you aren't going to screw around with. It's like, you know, I'm not changing the tuna tartare. I'm not changing the caviar parfait. There's certain dishes that have to stay the same, but you can't get comfortable with too many of those.
Well, where does the humility come from, Michael? Chef, like when you talked about it earlier, you were talking about, you got a shot. You didn't know it was your shot. You didn't know that this was a big break, but you got it. Where did the humility come from, though? Because most of the time, as people have the type of rise that you do, which I want to compliment you, because your rise has been consistent. And it wasn't like some people can say, oh, wow, Chef Michael Mina blew up. He didn't blow up. There was a lot of things over time that you were able to do. But let's go back to young Chef, even before he was Chef, when he was Michael. Was it your parents instilling that in you, that you rely on people, that you connect with people, and that you lift people up? Is that where it came from?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny. My mom, I always tell her, I used to be able to bring friends home, and literally in 10 minutes, my mom would be, "Don't ever bring that person to the house again." and half of them are probably in jail or spent some time there. And then I'd have friends that, she's like, that person's great, and a lot of those people are still my really close friends to this day from when I was a kid. And so my mom always had a really good radar for that, which I, luckily got that from her, and which has always helped me. But I mean, I think that yes, I was fortunate to have a good, a good family, a good, really good family values, growing up, and being part of a large family because we were from another country, so we were Egyptian, and we moved to the center of Washington State where wasn't a lot of Egyptians there. In fact, there was zero besides us, and so, but my mom had a lot of brothers and sisters, and so family get-togethers were every weekend, and they were 30 people, and so large groups, and a lot of food. And I think that that's kind of where I got my passion for food, is just seeing how, how food just brought everyone together. But the humility piece of it, of, understanding that, um, understanding that, I don't know. I mean, I've always been a chef that has been, you know, I didn't, passed up an enormous amount of television opportunities because I think that it's great, because I know how hard of work that is. Like, I know chefs that are doing television, and I know how much work it takes to be good at that, but also know how much time it takes to do it. And it takes away a lot of the time that I like to have in the restaurant and in the kitchen. And when you're in the restaurant and in the kitchen, and you see, you see how hard everyone's working each day. Everyone's really working really hard. And then you start to get to work with people that, either have worked for you for a long time, have worked for you, then gone to work for someone else, and then come back and work with you, or have worked for somebody else and come work for you, and they bring a lot of great ideas and everything to the table. As much as possible, you like to make sure they get the recognition for that, because honestly, it's they deserve it. It's the best way to say it, is they deserve it. They put in the work to get it. So as much as you can give them the recognition for it, you should. And I mean, I think in this day and age, of course, yeah, somebody wants to come and say, oh, I ate at Michael Mina's restaurant, but really, you came and ate at a restaurant that Michael Mina's part of, and there's a group of 100 people at that restaurant that are making it great. Then there's a group of corporate people, and a group of people in all the different restaurants. And the funnest part is when you open them, because when you open them, like right now we're opening Tiburon, and it's so much fun because the guys from Hawaii are out, and the guys from San Diego are out, and we have it's just some right now we're starting to just get more, knock on wood, we have some really amazing it's just some really amazing talent, whether it's we have some great female bartenders and cooks, and just all the different diversity of different countries, different cities and states that they're from, male, female, just all of that diversity comes together during an opening, and there's nothing like it. Like, everybody is getting, this really, I always call it, like, they're just getting this amazing crash course in what a restaurant is all about, because the same kind of diversity that you have with working within a restaurant, sometimes it's really magical when you have these restaurants and you have all of these different people come through that you see.
Well, when you have these things too, what do you see? I mean, say like with a Patrick, right? So I've been friends with Patrick for over 20 years. I remember when he first started, started with you. What do you see in a person, right? Because there's so many people out there that I'm looking at it. When you're saying that there's opportunity, right? Which in all service industries right now, it's the easiest time to get a job in the history of man, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Chef,
Yeah.
what are you looking for that will cause you to maybe invest a little bit more? And so what are some of those
Hmm.
traits?
Absolutely. It's the full package. Like with a Patrick or with anybody, I always say, it's the person that, has the full package. And what they have is, I think it's you know, what I always like to tell people is like a person that has, it kind of takes three things that you want to do with your guests, right? You want to have the ability with your guests to connect with your guests. So connection's easy. Connection is, oh, hey, Kelly, oh, where are you from? Oh, I grew up, in Southern California. Oh, did you ever go here? Blah, 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 whatever it is. So now you can make, that quick connection. Building then there's befriending somebody, and that's the second step, and that one's harder. That one's now, like, okay, you're, well, where do you like to travel, blah blah blah. Oh, well, here's some great restaurants, let me make you a reservation, here, whatever, right? Then there's building long-term relationships with people. And the people that have the ability to build long-term relationships with people are the people that are really going to put in the effort to build these long-term relationships, and people are going to come back and see them forever. Well, it's the same way with your staff. You want to have people that, the reality is they're going to have a great work ethic. You know, there's certain things that are 100% non-negotiables, right? They're going to have a great work ethic. But the reality is you're looking at them. Um, the reality is you're looking at them, and you're, you want to make sure that they have a good long-term, they have the ability to lead people, and those are the people that you're going to invest in, because those are the same people that you're going to need, long term.
So one of the things with my brother's there in Las Vegas, and he's a huge fan too, by the way. And he told me that people are going to be inspired at times with your successes, but they'll be more impacted by the missteps that you have and the challenges that you run into and the things that you do that kind of screw up a little bit. In
Yeah.
in your world, talk to us about some of those missteps and how you've been able to take and how you've been able to not only learn from them, but also to be able to put yourself in a place where maybe you never do that again, or it's the most valuable lesson that you've ever got.
Yeah, I mean, I think that long term, just because I have been doing this for a long time, so you know, you you definitely get, you have things that, there's all different layers of it. There's the layers of, look, as you do this business, and the other part of doing it, for a few decades, is like most businesses, the business changes. Like our industry is changing, just, like other industries change, and places were probably more intense and in the kitchens and things like that than they needed to be, including myself in younger days. And I'm, wish, yeah, things you wish you weren't as intense as you were. There's that stuff, but then there's the business side of it, where you're looking at it and you're like, oh, the problem with becoming a chef is people are asking you, for everything. Um, Asking you, like, because you're the chef, all of a sudden people think you know everything, right? Oh, they think you start to think, okay, you're a plumber, you're an electrician, because everyone's asking you every question, right? And so probably the biggest lesson I learned was it's okay to not know everything, to be able to say, what, I don't know the answer to that. We're gonna, but we are gonna find the person that does know the answer to that. And I think that those are some of the lessons that you have to learn. And then it's just, like you were saying with growth. I mean, I think you have to be smart with growth. I think there's periods of time where, we've grown quicker than we've had the people to grow, and then we've had to slow down and say, you know, we ultimately have to have time to build more people before we can grow like this.
Well, I know that you're a sports fan too. And when you're talking about sports and things like that, like who would you compare your, like, you know, your organization that you put together and the way that you want to function? If you were to compare that to maybe a professional sports franchise, who would you want to model it after?
I'd want to model it after the modern day Warriors, the way the Warriors play right now, where everybody is, having fun and everyone is out there and everyone is, the way they played over the last, they just look like they're having a great time out there playing, you know.
Well, I think, this year, are you
And there's a
calling the
real
show?
system to it too. There's a
Absolutely.
system to how they play, and I think that that's a big part of it too.
Are you calling the shot, Chef, this year? You think the Warriors are going to take the West?
I always do, whether they're gonna or not. The answer is always going to be yes.
My answer is yes too. And I love the fact of being able to, that you have people that are okay with their particular role. Like you said, and there's movement in the ball. That's what I love about that particular team. I've been a fan for quite some time, and I'm real happy that you're a fan of it too. So when you're looking, to possibly do another restaurant, what are some of the factors that you're looking into? I mean, when you did Tiburon, and you guys now have 41 restaurants throughout the world. What are some of the components that you're looking for, whether it be in a city or the cuisine, or which one comes first?
Well, it's usually a combination of both. Yeah, you're looking at the location, you're looking at the city. You're picking. Sometimes you kind of get high on a cuisine and or a concept, and you want to do it, and then you're looking at the city, and a lot of ours are partnerships, like with hotels and casinos. So we get a lot of things pitched at us, and then we'll evaluate them when we get them pitched at us. But then we just try to figure out, what's the right cuisine or what's the right concept that's going to fit in that market. And so it really depends on what you're trying to do. Who's going to be your clientele is going to, a lot of it is going to decide what concept you put into that market when you go to a certain market.
So when you're looking at it, right, we were just talking about this the other day, where people always talking about crushing goals, like putting a goal out there and crushing it, which I don't believe in. For me personally, I don't believe in that stuff. I believe in having vision, and then your goals will be the milestones or the inch stones that come along with the vision. Because when you have that vision, then you're on the road and you don't get as distracted. It seems like with your organization, you guys have such a clear vision that you are able to almost circumvent missteps. Not to say that you're perfect, but you circumvent missteps because your vision continues to lead you guys, right? So when you're talking about vision, what would be, for lack of a better word, what would be the gospel of the Mina Group? What would be that thing that someone could say, hey, they believe in this, this, and this, and that's where they're moving towards?
Yeah, I think it's the whole package. It starts with hospitality. I mean, the one thing that I always say is people are going to say that you're in the restaurant business and it's all about the food, but I don't call it the restaurant business. I call it the hospitality business, because I think that our vision has always been that it's all about the hospitality, and and that's what we're aiming for. There's no, to build a great restaurant, to build a restaurant that's doing, Michelin, 3-star Michelin food and not have good hospitality. I have no desire to do that. That gives me, that would not give me any pleasure. It's all about the guests and the people that are walking in that door and building a certain hospitality. And I think that that's always kind of how it's been. And so to do that, you have to, hire hospitable people, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a person that doesn't like to be around people, they're not going to do well around people.
So as you go along, what's next for the Mina Group? What's next for those things? And what's your kind of, if I would have told you at 19 years old that you were going to be sitting in a place where you were partnered all over the world, that you were going to be pitched all these concepts, it would have been kind of Star Wars for you. But what's Star Wars now for Chef?
Well, I think it's the same as, what we had started pre-pandemic, and now it's starting to happen again more and more, which is really it's very enjoyable partnering with chefs and doing things of that nature. And so I think that we will continue to do that as well as do our own concepts. But I think we will always continue to partner with chefs, whether they're chefs that work for us or whether they're chefs that are from the outside. But a lot of them, it is fun to have somebody like an Adam Sobel, who's our executive chef of the company, but he has this amazing Italian concept that he's that's his, and it's all about him. And so doing that with him, those are the things that are really enjoyable for me right now.
So I wanted to start, when I first started the podcast, I did it because I wanted to take iconic people like yourself, and I wanted to show my kids. Now, my daughter is an aspiring chef, and she is going to freak out when she gets to watch this. And she gets to see now Uncle Chef Michael Mina on the podcast. So it's McKenna, who's 12, and Maddox, who's 10, and I wanted to show them that iconic people like yourself are not superheroes, that you guys are people that have phenomenal attitudes and you have crazy work ethic, and that with those two things, you can accomplish anything in life. And I wanted to be able to have people like yourself on the show to show my kids that. So what advice would you have, Chef, for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both of their names, it would be awesome.
Well, Maddox and McKenna, my advice to both of you is whatever it is that you decide that you want to do, don't, people, you will change your mind over time. Over the course of life, you can change your mind. You can, make new decisions, go in different directions, whatever it is. But what you want to do is you want to start, obviously, like everyone says, you want to start at the bottom. You want to work your way up. You want to have a great work ethic. You want to do all of the normal things that everyone's going to tell you that you have to do. You have to, endure and have the patience to do it. But probably the biggest thing that you want to do is you want to build relationships with as many people as you can to get the most out of the people that really have the knowledge to give to you. And I think a lot of times you got to spend that time, just doing the studying, doing everything else, but really continually build relationships and get yourself out there and, really, be inquisitive, especially with the people that have the knowledge that can help you.
Well, Chef, it has been my absolute pleasure and honor to be able to have you on the show. I mean, it's so cool because most of the time when you have a person at your level, I mean, you're a Michael Jordan of your industry. Like you are the top, and to be able to connect with you, I just think that I want to compliment you because you have been present this whole entire time. I mean, even before we started recording, when you jumped on, it was like I've known you for years and years and years, and I've known you. But, this is one of the first times we get to spend some time together. But I look forward to a lifelong friendship and forcing you to be my friend for the rest of your life.
Let's do it.
I tell you, anyone out there, if you've taken any value, which I know every single one of you have from Chef, I want you to share this episode. This is the time where you click the sponsors, you do all those things, of which the number one sponsor for us has been the Mina Group since the very beginning of the podcast. I want to thank you for that, Chef. And I tell you, the things that you spoke about, and it comes so naturally, that servant leadership, that believing in people, that lifting people up, I just think that it is so amazing. And for anyone out there that has not experienced a Michael Mina experience, and when I say that, I'm not just talking about a restaurant, it's an experience, you have to. It will absolutely change, but it will kill all other experiences because this is the top notch. And so can you do me one solid before we take off, Chef? Can you send out a message to Pops? That's my dad. He is your biggest fan. And could you give him a little shout out?
Pops, love you. Get your butt to International Smoke so we can cook for you.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. Chef, you are officially off the hot seat.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.